Megalodon. A name that sounds less like an animal and more like a natural disaster with teeth. This wasn't a shark, it was a moving continent with a bite. At nearly 18 meters long and weighing over 60 tons, it turned whales into appetizers. Its bite force? Around 180,000 newtons. Enough pressure to fold a car the way you fold laundry. Its teeth reached 18 centimeters, steak knives disguised as fossils. And it didn't take delicate samples from prey. It carved out whale-sized chunks like an ancient oceanic cookie cutter. Scientists even found whale bones neatly stamped with circular bite marks, as if the ocean itself had a sense of presentation. And yet, despite its brutal resume, Megalodon was simply doing what the ancient sea demanded: dominate or disappear. It never lived with dinosaurs, ruling long after they vanished, from the Miocene to the Pliocene, until cooling oceans erased its reign. When Megalodon vanished, the seas grew quieter, but the silence never lasts long down there. Something always rises to fill the void. Mosasaurus. Then came Mosasaurus, the marine equivalent of a T-Rex, but with better flexibility and a more dramatic attitude. It wasn't a dinosaur at all, but a supercharged marine reptile up to 15 meters long, descended from lizards that once walked on land. Imagine a crocodile redesigned by an engineer who desperately wanted a raise. Its double-hinged jaws allowed it to swallow prey whole, including other mosasaurs, because in the ancient sea, family was more of a suggestion than a rule. It patrolled warm Cretaceous waters, ambushing turtles, fish, and even pterosaurs reckless enough to skim the surface. It ruled with force, speed, and absolute opportunism. Evolution had dragged its ancestors ashore, only for Mosasaurus to drag the bloodline back into the deep with a vengeance. It's proof that nature doesn't move in straight lines. Sometimes it loops back for another round of chaos. Camarasaurus. Before sharks sharpened their first tooth, or reptiles learned to swim, Camarasaurus ruled the oceans like a nightmare in the armor. This Ordovician predator stretched up to 9 meters long, a biological torpedo tipped with tentacles. Not a fish, not a reptile. This was a giant cephalopod wearing a cone-shaped shell like medieval plate armor. Powered by jet propulsion and armed with a bone-crushing beak, it hunted trilobites and early fish with silent, methodical violence. Imagine being dragged into the dark by a weaponized squid encased in metal. Evolution, at this stage, felt like a brainstorming session with no adult supervision. And yet Camarasaurus thrived because it mastered patience, stealth, and raw simplicity. Sometimes the oldest designs remain the most terrifying. Dunkleosteus. Then, rising from the Devonian seas, came Dunkleosteus, nature's original tank. It didn't have teeth. It didn't need them. Instead, bone armor shaped into razor-sharp jaw plates snapped shut with terrifying speed, about 1/50th of a second, and generated a bite force exceeding 6,000 newtons. That's a crocodile with forge-welded steel dentures. Dunkleosteus didn't nibble, it guillotined. Sharks of its time were essentially swimming snacks. Its armored skull looks less biological and more like something hammered together by a blacksmith with anger issues. And yet beneath all that armor was a surprisingly agile predator, capable of accelerating forward like a living cannonball. It ruled because nothing else could physically withstand it. When Dunkleosteus died out, the seas finally exhaled, briefly. Helicoprion. Enter Helicoprion, the buzzsaw shark. Evolution, at this point, clearly stopped caring about practicality. This Permian predator reached around 6 meters in length and wielded a lower jaw curled into a perfect spiral of teeth, an actual biological circular saw. For decades, scientists didn't even know where the spiral belonged. Some thought it sat on the nose, others placed it on the back like a horrific dorsal ornament. Eventually, they discovered it was tucked inside the lower jaw, forming a rolling conveyor belt of serrated doom. Helicoprion didn't bite prey, it processed it. A slice-and-roll technique worthy of a kitchen appliance from hell. And somehow, unbelievably, it worked well enough for the species to survive millions of years. Proof that evolution occasionally approves absolute madness. Elasmosaurus. Next comes Elasmosaurus, whose name means thin plate, but it deserved something more dramatic, like oops, all neck. This Cretaceous marine reptile stretched up to 12 meters, with nearly half that length dedicated to its absurdly long neck. Think sea serpent, but designed by someone who refused to acknowledge proportion limits. Elegance wasn't its strength, stealth was. By keeping its main body still and extending its neck forward, it could strike without giving away its position. It fed on fish and squid, swallowing them whole because chewing with a neck that long would require a physics degree. Fossils reveal gastroliths, stones in its stomach used for buoyancy or grinding food. Elasmosaurus is a reminder that beauty and absurdity often swim side by side in the ocean's past. Nature isn't always efficient, but it is always creative. Leeds ichthys. But not every giant in the ancient seas was a killer. Meet Leeds ichthys, the gentle colossus of the Jurassic. While every other creature came armed with blades, claws, and attitude problems, this fish simply filtered plankton in peace. Up to 16 meters long, possibly more, it glided through predator-filled oceans with slow, deliberate grace. It strained thousands of liters of water a day, turning microscopic life into fuel for a massive frame. Its size didn't grant safety. Its soft body and calm speed made it a floating buffet for anything with teeth. Leeds ichthys survived through sheer scale and constant movement, a reminder that not all giants need violence to matter. It was the ocean's proof that peaceful doesn't mean insignificant. Basilosaurus. And finally, Basilosaurus, the sea serpent that wasn't a serpent at all. Despite its reptilian name, this 18-meter predator was one of the earliest whales. An evolutionary experiment caught between the land dwellers it came from and the ocean titans it would one day inspire. Its long, eel-like body and rows of sharp teeth made it a terror unlike anything alive today. It still carried tiny hind legs, evolutionary leftovers, useless for swimming, but priceless for confusing scientists. Basilosaurus hunted sharks, dolphins, and young whales with ruthless efficiency. Imagine a python that breathes air and screams underwater. Its rise marked the ocean's final shift from reptilian rulers to mammalian monarchs. The sea didn't lose its monsters, it simply rewrote them. Conclusion. Extinct sea predators weren't just animals. They were experiments. Bold, terrifying, beautiful experiments, written across millions of years of water and bone. From the buzzsaw shark to the armored juggernaut. From serpentine whales to gentle giants, each one carried a different answer to the question. What does survival look like today? Some ruled with biting force, others with stealth, others with sheer size. And yet all of them vanished, leaving only fossils and guesses behind. The ocean forgets nothing, but it also forgives nothing. Power rises, power falls, and the waves erase even the greatest jaws.